Ситуація була критична.
The situation was critical. The enemy had broken through the first line of defenses of the Ukrainian defense forces in that area, and there was a danger of encirclement of Ukrainian troops in the areas of Dobropilia, Pokrovsk, and Mirnohrad.
In mid-August, Ukraine's forces halted a Russian push toward Dobropilia, stabilizing the front and launching sharp counterattacks that began reshaping the area. By August 16, Kyiv described the fighting as a cleanup operation. On August 24, Ukraine announced the liberation of several Donetsk villages in the Pokrovsk-Dobropilia sector.
Першочергова задача була
Our first task was to establish blocking lines to prevent the enemy's movement. We managed to stop the enemy and established a final blocking line at Zoloty Kolodias, along with blocking lines on the flanks. In the first weeks, we worked to stabilize the situation, gather information about the enemy and their situation on the ground, and finally establish the blocking positions. But the enemy still managed to penetrate our lines in small groups.
When we arrived in the sector in mid-October, we can see the Russians using the same infiltration tactic Lemko describes.
A little bit earlier, we saw two Russians, one dressed in civilian clothes, one dressed partly in civilian clothes because he had like his top as a civilian, right, and under, military trousers. So spotted, at least by the drones, they would come out of, some underground pipelines, and they would kind of like roam around and try and infiltrate actually the Ukrainian side. They go by like really small groups, like either like 1, 2, 3 maximum, kind of spread out. And the idea is that, the drone's going to try and hunt them, but they can still breach into Ukrainian defenses.
критичної ситуації такої.
After we stabilized the situation, the commander-in-chief decided to conduct an offensive operation with flanking strikes in the salient. Units from air assault forces, unmanned systems forces, and other units joined us. Azov united all units within the area and the sector. We sent our liaison officers to other units and command posts. We helped them. Sometimes they helped us, and we all united to achieve this common goal. In early September, we began conducting counteroffensive actions.
Ukraine had to swiftly deploy most of its elite forces to cut off Russia's 51st and 8th armies, supported by naval reserves. As of September, Russia had reportedly lost 3,185 Russian troops, of which 1,769 were destroyed, and also 969 units of weapons and military equipment, according to Alexander Siersky, the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's armed forces. Lieutenant Colonel Lemko puts the figure higher.
Коротко кажучи, за 2,5
Over 2.5 months, the enemy has lost over 10,000 personnel in the area, both wounded and killed in action. They also lost hundreds of vehicles, and I'm not even counting their UAVs. We have also captured over 100 POWs by encircling them. I do advise you to go to the 1st Separate Assault Regiment, to the Da Vinci Group. They just do wonders. They have cut Russian logistical routes for Russian personnel, and it's due to their efforts that we managed to encircle those Russian troops there.
The Russians wanted to cut Ukraine's logistics between Kramatorsk and Dobropilia. Ukraine would give them a taste of their own medicine by cutting theirs from the rear.
We split the operation into stages. In the first stage, we cut off the flanks, the furthest salient, and carried out a comprehensive clearance of the settlements. Enemy forces remained in the wooded belts, and clearing there took longer. First, we blocked their advance in depth, then executed a second envelopment and severed the main ring. Several assault units were involved. The 225th, its 1st Battalion, and our regiment, with the 425th Separate Assault Regiment, operating slightly further down. It was a complex operation. The position couldn't be held, so we conducted it in 2 phases. Initially, we advanced with mechanized brigades. While the enemy concentrated on that mechanized thrust, we held the sector with small groups and gradually destroyed or captured the enemy forces trapped in the encirclement.
Throughout September, Ukrainian troops used a pockets-first tactic to isolate and eliminate Russian groups around Pokrovsk and Dobropilia, with steady map gains confirmed by open-source analysts. From mid-September to early October, Ukrainian advances pushed back Russian units near Volodymyrka, Shakhove, and Nove Shakhove, while minor clashes flared around Nikhanorivka and Zoloty Kolodyazh.
It was supposed to become the enemy's final culmination of this year. They wanted to reach the settlement of Barvinkove, cut off Slovyansk, and cut off Kramatorsk, to finish the year with a victorious achievement. We prevented it.
These feats wouldn't have been possible without the infantry.
Our fighter with the call sign Jockey got into hand-to-hand combat with the enemy. He ripped the automatic rifle out of his hands, bare-handed, burned his own hands, and then, using the enemy's knife in that close fight, stabbed him. "I killed him," he said afterwards. "He's just an ordinary person, not some professional military guy. Killing an enemy in hand-to-hand combat is something else." Many people's psyches shut down, and they go into shock, but he stayed focused, a real champ.
It's no secret that Ukraine faces a critical manpower shortage in the infantry. It's part of what's led to the breakthrough alongside Russia's massive deployment of troops in this front to try to break Ukraine's defenses around Pokrovsk. These guys work in this direction.
Forget about big movement of troop. Forget about this big column. It doesn't work for Russians. It doesn't work for Ukrainians either. Now, for Ukrainian armed forces, as for the Russians, actually, it's better for them to move by a group of 2 or 3.
You have to have nerves of steel and serious stamina. The first mission, 11 days. The second, 4 days. An open trench, a small dugout. That's where we held the position. It was small, hard to notice. That's where we ended up. The Russians shelled us. They knew our location. There were direct hits and everything. But we held our ground.
Assault troops had to add gas masks to their kits to survive chemical attacks, as if FPVs, shellings, and enemy assaults weren't enough.
When we're holding positions, the enemy often drops gas on us, trying to smoke us out of the trenches. They use chemicals, gases, anything they've got. The fumes and burning munitions can also cause internal burns.
In a desperate push before winter, Russia has recently resorted to sending large columns of vehicles to break Ukrainian lines around Pokrovsk and Dobropilia to back up infiltrated groups. On October 11, Russia's renewed assault near Dobropilia failed with heavy losses, followed by another significant armored push on October 16 near Shakhove, which Ukraine repelled.
І крайні тижні вони перейшли до механізованих.
Over the past few weeks, they have started conducting mechanized assaults instead. They use columns of 5 or 6 vehicles and send several waves. At the head of each column is a tank, covered with additional armor and a huge EW system to protect the column. However, our experience shows that this tactic has not been effective for them. Literally, a week or 2 ago, the enemy was actively using armored vehicles to try to break through toward us. The infantry began moving the equipment early, and our UAVs spotted them in advance. Very quickly, the UAV strike systems flew in, blew them up. They started turning around on the spot and unloading their infantry.
Going from point A to point B has become deadly. The Russians expand the kill zone every day with longer-range fiber-optic drones, but the 93rd Brigade pushes back.
If a drone flies to us, how long do we have? It all depends on how far away it is. If it's far, you don't need it, it won't work. If it comes up closer, say about 15 to 20 meters, it's effective. Very effective.
Fiber optic drones are the new counterpunch. Their wide link makes them far harder to jam, letting operators strike with precision at the cost of reduced freedom of movement since the cable can snag. This is the only time I'll ever feel comfortable hearing this sound so close.
As soon as we increased our drone's range by 3 to 4 kilometers, our strike zone expanded. You can see the results. In a single day, we destroy up to 20 units of enemy equipment and infantry columns. And we disrupt their logistics. We can now reach their artillery lines. We destroy their artillery and stop their supply routes.
By late October, Ukraine had crushed one of Russia's biggest mechanized attacks near Shachove-Volodymyrka and regained ground around Nove Shachove. Finally, on November 2, Ukraine's forces reportedly completed the cleanup around Dobropilia, eliminating Russian pockets and liberating multiple settlements across the front. Yet, let's face it, the situation is dire further south in Pokrovsk. Urban warfare is raging and the once prosperous city lies in ruins. Russia outnumbers Ukrainian troops 8-1 in their offensive. They're already in the city center. Operations like Dobropilia shows that despite being outgunned, outnumbered, and out-resourced, the Ukrainian army is one, if not the most capable fighting forces in the world. However, after 4 years, even the best tactics are difficult to implement without military external support, which Ukraine desperately needs to hold the line.